Greetings and thank you for tuning in. Today we delve into the fascinating world of The Picture of Dorian Gray, a captivating novel penned by the brilliant Oscar Wilde. This 19th-century literary work introduces us to a unique blend of philosophy, horror, and aestheticism, showcasing the moral decadence of a man obsessed with eternal youth and beauty. So let's immerse ourselves in the captivating and intricately woven narrative of Wilde's magnum opus. The Picture of Dorian Gray unfolds in the refined society of Victorian London. Basil Hallward, a talented painter, becomes utterly infatuated with a stunningly handsome young man named Dorian Gray. Dorian possesses an alluring innocence that Basil believes captures the essence of the age. Overwhelmed by Dorian's beauty, Basil creates a masterful portrait of him, which becomes a symbol of Dorian's pure youthfulness and aesthetic appeal. During a painting session, Dorian is introduced to Lord Henry Wotton, a friend of Basil. Wotton is a charismatic cynic, an advocate of hedonism, who believes that the only worthwhile life is one dedicated to pleasure and self-indulgence. Dorian is deeply influenced by Wotton's worldviews and becomes terrified at the thought of losing his youthful beauty, as suggested by the portrait. In a fit of desperate vanity and fear, Dorian expresses a wild wish. He yearns for the portrait to age in his stead, while he himself remains forever young. This moment marks the sinister turning point in the novel, although the full implications of his wish only gradually reveal themselves. As the story advances, Dorian falls in love with Sybil Vane, a beautiful and talented actress from a low-income background. Sybil, who performs Shakespearean plays at a rundown theater, refers to Dorian as Prince Charming, being utterly smitten by him. However, when Sybil fails to perform to Dorian's expectations, he cruelly breaks off their engagement, driving her to commit suicide. Despite his initial shock, Dorian quickly succumbs to Wotton's influence and adopts a stance of indifference, viewing the incident as an artistic experience. This marks the start of Dorian's moral degeneration. When he looks at his portrait, he sees a subtle sneer of cruelty has crept onto its face. This serves as the first indication that his sinister wish has come true. The portrait has started reflecting his moral decay, while he remains physically unaltered. Dorian then descends into a life of debauchery and hedonism under the influence of a mysterious, poisonous French novel, a gift from Lord Henry. His wrongdoings escalate in severity, and his sins, as well as the toll of age, start reflecting on the portrait, making it grotesque while he stays eternally youthful. His double life continues for several years, his reputation suffers, but the evidence of his misdeeds only shows on the canvas. No matter what Dorian does, his appearance remains unchanged, but the picture turns increasingly hideous. Eventually, in a fit of rage and guilt, Dorian murders Basil, who had come to confront him about his life of vice after he sees the abhorrent portrait. To dispose of Basil's body, Dorian blackmails an old friend, a scientist named Alan Campbell. Haunted by guilt and fear, and seeking a form of redemption, Dorian decides to be good rather than merely appear so. He pursues a romance with Hetty Merton, a simple and innocent country girl, and resolves not to corrupt her as he did Sybil. However, when he looks at his portrait, it appears even more revolting, as his act of supposed goodness is merely a vanity, a strategy to appear better, rather than a sincere effort to reform. Driven to despair, Dorian, in a final act of desperation, attempts to kill the monstrous image in the portrait, an embodiment of his marred soul. He stabs the picture, and as he does, a terrible cry is heard. Servants break into the room to find an old, withered man stabbed in the heart, lying in front of a magnificent portrait of a young and innocent Dorian Gray. Oscar Wilde's The Picture of Dorian Gray is a profound exploration of aesthetics, morality, and the human soul. It illustrates the consequences of unchecked hedonism and self-indulgence as Dorian, who once embodied purity and beauty, degrades into a life of vice and corruption, shielded by his unchanging beauty. Wilde delves into the philosophical dilemma of the superficiality of society, which judges individuals based on their appearance rather than their character. This is highlighted by the double life of Dorian Gray, a handsome man of society, and a monstrous portrait hidden in his attic. The portrait serves as a mirror to Dorian's soul, recording each sin and reflecting the horrific transformation within. It symbolizes the profound truth that physical beauty and aesthetic appeal are transient, and it is the moral and ethical dimensions that confer true value to a person's existence. The novel also offers critical insights into the Victorian society of its time. Lord Henry's cynicism in pursuit of pleasure, Dorian's vanity and hedonism, and Basil's obsession with beauty, all encapsulate the moral decadence and hypocrisy of the era. In conclusion, The Picture of Dorian Gray is a timeless novel that prompts us to reflect on the impermanence of beauty, the pitfalls of vanity, and the perils of leading a life of unprincipled hedonism. Oscar Wilde, with his sharp wit and command over language, has gifted us a literary masterpiece that remains relevant even today. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of Oscar Wilde's magnum opus. If you enjoyed this and wish to venture further into the captivating world of literature, please consider subscribing to this channel. We continue to bring you detailed summaries, insightful analysis, and a fresh perspective on a wide array of literary works. Until next time, keep reading, keep exploring, and keep expanding your literary horizons.